Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today we are featuring a very cool team that finished second at the Taiwanese National Championships a couple of weekends ago. This was built by a player called Ryan, aka Hope Guitar, and it has some really interesting sets, especially on Latios and Snorlax. So yeah, as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team. Thank you to Ryan for the team. Check him out, linked in the description below on Twitter, as well as a rental and a paste. And if you enjoy Road to Ranked, please share your support by leaving a like in the video. I'd really appreciate it. If you want to just skip slip battles, by the way, they are timestamped in the description below. So Yveltal plus Zacian has been a somewhat common restricted duo since really the beginning of the format. It hasn't seen, I'd say, that much usage, but overall has been decently powerful. And I think Yveltal is actually in a pretty interesting spot in the metagame right now with so many Calyrex Shadow Riders and Zacians running around. And so the idea is that, Zacian is obviously just one of the most powerful Pokemon in the format. And Yveltal has nice synergy with it because it's more of a kind of special-oriented attacker rather than physical. And so you're not as affected by Intimidate. You also are immune to ground-type attacks, which Zacian, doesn't really want to go up against. So what's interesting about this team is that, the Yveltal actually isn't going to Dynamax that frequently. In fact, it's actually Regieleki and Landorus T that are really strong max options. This is Timid, max speed Regieleki. And so one thing that I wanted to start doing on Road to Rank, by the way, is actually showing the pastes while we talk about the team. So I figured, yeah, if this is something you guys enjoy, let me know in the comment section below so it's a little bit easier to follow. And then I'll flash back to the rental code. But as you can see, Eleki here is max speed with Timid and Rising Voltage. So you have a really powerful max Lightning. This can just one-shot a lot of Pokemon in the format. And Eleki can be such a potent sweeper in the right positions. And so there's a lot of speed across the board. As you see, Yveltal's max speed, that's really critical because there are a lot of restricted Pokemon are just under Yveltal's speed. And so being able to make sure you outspeed things like Kyogre and Groudon, as well as more niche Pokemon like, Kyurem or Solgaleo is really valuable. And so the Zacian here is a little bit bulkier, as you can see. Doesn't have max speed investment, but you have Substitute. Sub is really nice with this team, I think, because you can make some pretty cool plays with it. Play rough isn't like super essential in my opinion. Like, you normally want play rough into things like Palkia and opposing Yveltals. This team has a decent Yveltal matchup with Eleki and Landorus. Play rough could be a little bit helpful for Palkia, but the thing is Yveltal can just snarl Palkias to decrease their special attack. So if you're going up against Palkia, you're going to want to try to stall out their Dynamax and then really go from there. To round out the team, you've got the White Herb Landorus T. That's pretty common right now. I feel like White Herb has become a more dominant item on it recently. And then you've got Focus Sash Tailwind Latios, as well as non-Gigantamax Snorlax with Leftovers and Thick Fat. So, of course, we have to talk a little bit about both Latios and Snorlax here. Latios is really cool because it's kind of a unique Tailwind user and actually gets access to some pretty powerful attacks and coverage, right, between Psyshock, Icy Wind, and Energy Ball. And with Focus Sash, it is very difficult to essentially outspeed Latios and KO it before it can get the Tailwind up. So it creates for some pretty interesting support. And also it's, base 110 speed, so you actually outspeed a lot of the Pokemon that otherwise could give you trouble. For example, like, I know Latios here is actually very helpful into the Sun matchup. And what you can do is lead something like Latios Landorus and just Tailwind into Max Rockfall into opposing Charizards, for example. So Latios here, you can really lead with anything, but it's just a strong Tailwind user immediately. And Snorlax here is cursed with Double-Edged, Steel Roller, Yawn, and Thick Fat, right? And so the Thick Fat's really nice because it gives you pretty good answers into like opposing fire types as well as ice types. This thing in itself is incredible against Calyrex Ice Rider, and it's really important for the team to have a good answer into Calyrex Ice Rider because, as you see, Yveltal, Landorus, Latios, they're all super weak to ice type attacks. So the idea of Snorlax is that it's really disruptive, right? It's super bulky, very easy to get a yawn off with it. And it's also, able to curse up, which is very strong against the kind of slow Trick Room-oriented teams that center around Calyrex Ice Rider. You've also got Steel Roller here, so that, allows you to have Max Steel Spike, which gives you a very definitive answer into Calyrex Ice Rider should you go up against it. So I think Snorlax with this team is like pretty situational. You don't always want to just force it, but it can be super good into the matchups where you're either able to get a yawn off into like a Dynamax Pokemon early on in the game, or you're able to bring it against like the slow teams that have Trick Room. So yeah, leading Snorlax can be valuable if you think you're able to just get a quick yawn off immediately with it as well. But a lot of possible lead combos with this team. Like, the main thing to be careful about is that like Landorus, Eleki, and to an extent Yveltal all kind of want to Dynamax. So if you're bringing like multiple of those, you want to make sure that you position yourself correctly in terms of when you use your Dynamax, right? But yeah, overall, I think it's really neat to feature a high-ranking team that has Latios and Snorlax. So let's jump into today's episode. First game of the day, and we're up against really standard Zacian plus Kyogre here. So, I'm mainly thinking about, like, can we feature Latios or Snorlax here? I think Latios is actually really cool because of Tailwind and Icy Wind. So, I am pretty down for leading this Pokemon. In my opinion, the main thing to watch out is, like, Eerie Impulse from the Zapdos. And I think Alecki is a pretty solid Dynamax option here. See, the problem with Snorlax is that both my opponent's restricteds just match up really well into it, unfortunately. They do have Rillaboom, so being able to Steel Roller and get rid of Terrain is kind of cool. And if I could get a Yawn off, it'd be big, but the thing is that, like, Kyogre can max Lightning to set up Electric Terrain, thus preventing Sleep, which doesn't instill that much confidence in me. If I were them, I would probably lead one of Grimm or Incin plus, like, Zapdos, maybe? So what's my best way around that? I'm actually down for a Zacian lead here, and the reason for that is because I really want to eliminate the Grimmsnarl. If I can get rid of Grimmsnarl, then it really paves the way for, like, Alecki to just Dynamax and Max Lightning without having to deal with, like, Trick Iron Ball or Trick Lagging Tail from the opposing Grimmsnarl, for example. So, we'll see. Either way, though, I think Latios for a Tailwind option here is pretty cool because it helps out a lot against, you know, their about both of these mons, honestly. So, like, I think given this lead, they didn't go with Grimm or Rilla. I can just go for a Tailwind turn 1, but the Zacian is in a little bit of an awkward position right now because I can't actually go for, like, Play Rough, for example. But this, to me, is clearly a Dynamax Regieleki game. I guess the other interesting thing is I don't actually necessarily need to click Tailwind if I expect Latios to survive the turn. If I were them, though, you could just Hurricane, Dynamax Kyogre, go for a Water-type attack. Or you could Water Spout, but then Water Spout would actually be a little bit weaker here. I'm, like, actually thinking about clicking Energy Ball. Because I don't really even need Tailwind with how fast everything is in the back. But I guess Tailwind's important for Yveltal speeding my opponent. Okay. I'm down to go for a Tailwind here. And actually just, well, it's going to be Behemoth Blade. I think Tailwind Protect turn 1 is fine here. It's a pretty safe option. Zap switches out, okay. That's Incineroar coming in. That's fine. There is even a world in which we think about Dynamaxing Latios, as crazy as that seems, because I can max Overgrowth Kyogre, and that would be pretty sick. And they're going to commit the Dynamax to Kyogre. Okay. If you look at my opponent's Pokemon right now, it's Incineroar, Kyogre, Zapdos, and presumably Zacian. So basically what we want to do is chip away at the Kyogre so that a Max Lightning from the Alecki will just demolish it. That's what we're looking for. Yveltal can also Snarl right now, which is quite useful. And you can see, like, this is why I didn't really want to bring the Snorlax, because, like, Snorlax just gets obliterated by a Max Geyser. Maybe they Hailstorm into Latios here, but wouldn't be the end of the world, I think, if they did. Although, I guess it would make my positioning a little bit more awkward. But they do just Geyser. Okay, cool. I might honestly even just sacrifice Zacian in this game, because, like, truthfully, what do I really get out of it, right? Here I'm definitely down to click Energy Ball into Kyogre. And Sub is interesting because they might fake out Latios and then Geyser into Zacian. So I'm down to Sub here. I don't really want to switch out into either of the Pokemon I have in the back. And yeah, they're not going to click Fake Out on either Mons. Okay. That works for me. It's a free Energy Ball into the Kyogre. Looks like AV to me. We actually get a Special Defense drop, which is pretty sweet. That's actually a really big deal given the Alecki that we have in the back. And they do go for a Geyser again. So if Incin just clicks like a Dark type attack here, we've already stalled out 2 turns of my opponent's Dynamax, which is really sweet. Okay, they actually have for Parting Shot. That also works for me. Yeah, that's already 2 turns of Dynamax over with, and like basically what we're looking to do is just bring out Alecki, click Max Lightning with it. If they bring out their Zacian right now, like I can drop its speed via Icy Wind, which, you know, can hinder my opponent a little bit. It is going to be Zacian coming out, okay. And as you can see, like, they didn't bring Rillaboom or Grimmsnarl, so if Alecki is able to just Dynamax in this game, Max Lightning should KO everything in this end game, especially after Psychic Terrain goes up. So last turn of Dynamax for my opponent's end here. My Zacian's at neutral. Like, Zacian's not even that important in this game, in my opinion. So, I think here I'm willing to just go for an Icy Wind and a Behemoth Blade onto... I think I'd rather still target the Zacian slot. Yeah. And the reason I want to target Zacian is maybe to put it in Foul Play KO range later on from my Yveltal. I could lose both Pokemon this turn. Like, yeah, they could go for Max Hailstorm onto my Latios and then just Behemoth Blade onto my Zacian, but I wouldn't mind even losing both Mons here if it means free switch-ins. But Latios has done a lot for us in this game, which is awesome. It's set up Tailwind for us so that we can consistently outspeed, you know, the Zacian on the opposing end. Energy Ball for some free chip damage is always nice. And even got a special defense drop onto the Kyogre. So, yeah, they're going to Blade into my Zacian, as I mentioned. I guess I could have protected Zacian there to angle for the free switch it into a Lecky, but I don't mind just getting a lot of free damage off onto it. So, my only, like, main question to ask right now is, does a Foul Play from the Yveltal actually KO Zacian? They're going to take a little bit of hail damage here as well, because, like, I get a Lecky in for free. I get to max Lightning the Kyogre slot for a guaranteed knockout, essentially. I guess Kyogre could maybe switch out into Zapdos and Incin, and they might be bulky enough to take the max Lightning, because we're timid instead of modest. I think Foul Play should KO Zacian, though, with our ability and Yveltal having the same type attack bonus. It might be a little bit safer to just Lightning into Zacian, though, because how much does Kyogre really threaten us right now with us having Assault Vest? Not much, I guess. So, yeah, maybe it's smarter to just target Zacian. The main thing is, like, the Kyogre slot is completely exposed right now. But if I were them, I would switch out Zacian, personally. Because, like, that's how you're going to be able to actually win this game, right? One more turn to Tailwind. They're at -1 speed. I don't know, though. I really think a Foul Play just KOs Zacian here. But I guess Lightning... Like, the main thing is with Lecky, I don't want to just attack into a Protect, right? Zacian can switch out. I probably shouldn't risk it. With Kyogre here, they can Origin Pulse. Not that scary. Okay. I'm going to Snarl then. Dynamax and Lightning into Zacian. Just because, like, Kyogre shouldn't really pressure me with that much damage right now. Kyogre's the one switching out. Yep. Into Incin. That's fine. If Max Lightning didn't one-shot Incineroar anyway, then, yeah, like... There's not much of a difference here. It'll just make next turn pretty interesting because my opponent has to make this decision, like, do you stay in with Zacian? Also, if Zacian doesn't protect here, we just win the game, I think. Because then I can just Lightning easily to one-shot everything, right? This was all about, like, conserving our Regiolecky's Dynamax until the end game. But Latios was really nice for the early game in stalling out my opponent's Dynamax, as well as, like, setting up Tailwind to make sure their Zacian wouldn't just, like, outspeed me. And they don't protect Zacian, which is perfect. Cool. I think with that, then, it should really just be game over, because at this point, you can't fake out Regieleki, right? And so even though I went down 2-4 in this game, I stalled out my opponent's Dynamax and recognized that they had no real ways to, like, defensively deal with Regieleki, especially with no ground-type Pokemon. And Rillaboom is, like, the one thing you could have that would work as a switch-in, but they didn't have it, right? And they've revealed that pretty early on. So now it's like Kyogre Max Lightning, or Regieleki Max Lightning should one-shot Kyogre and Zapdos, especially with Electric Terrain. And they might not even have Protect on any of their remaining Pokemon. Like, it's pretty rare on Incineroar. Kyogre appears to be Assault Vested. And then Zapdos often likes, like... It depends on the set. If it's a Life Orb, then it likes, you know, just triple offense attacks like Hurricane, Heat Wave, Thunderbolt, Protect. So they're actually going to bring out the Zapdos. Since I'm Assault Vested here, I'll just go for the guaranteed KO onto Incineroar. And just Snarl into Zapdos. What they could do is Eerie Impulse my Regieleki. But basically what I didn't want to do is actually attack into a Protect and then have the Incineroar parting shot onto Regieleki or Yveltal. Because then I actually lose a lot of momentum, right? So it is the Eerie Impulse variant, but the reason I'm okay with this is because, yes, I'm at -2, but it's still an Electric Terrain boosted Regieleki. Now, I do miss Snarl there on Zapdos, but that's fine. Kyogre's going to come out for my opponent, and we have Sucker Punch, right? So, you know, physical boosted Sucker Punch into -2 Max Lightning into range should still KO Kyogre here. So, don't really care about Eerie Impulse because I know right now you can't protect very easily, and this is me just taking advantage of the fact that, yeah, like, one, my opponent didn't bring Rillaboom, and two, they can't protect easily. Really glad, you know, Latios got to put in some work in the early game, though, in this one. Pretty happy about that. So, go for Sucker Punch, and we'll go for Lightning here. And unless it's like a surprise non-Assault Vest Kyogre here, that should just be game over. But even if Kyogre were to protect here, I don't think there's much my opponent could do to win the game, to be honest. Sucker actually does a little bit less than I expected there, to be honest. Okay. Let's see if it can actually survive the Max Lightning here. Nope. I wonder if Sucker Punch was actually my strongest option. But given that we knew they were Assault Vest, Foul Play could work as well. They're just going to Thunder Yveltal. They can still win this game off like a para here. Or crit. I think we should still be okay, but that's actually... Oh, wow, it's a Life Orb with Eerie Impulse. Okay, that's interesting. I still don't think you KO without the crit there, to be honest. And I missed Snarl earlier as well, right? So... both of those have led to really bad news for me. But the question is, can I get a knockout onto Zapdos here with Rising Voltage, right? And can I survive an attack from their end? It would be kind of frustrating to lose this, to be honest. But I guess I didn't need to click Snarl. They do have Protect here as well. Okay. So the thing is, I'll get a big Rising Voltage off. If they have Roost here as well, I actually lose this one. Like, Terrain is still up, right? So I probably won't KO them, but they won't KO me in return, hopefully. And then we'll get another Rising Voltage off. But, yeah, that crit's really frustrating. Wow. I think we're going to lose the Snarl Miss into the crit, unfortunately. I survived Hurricane, but the thing is, Rising Voltage is not going to KO Zapdos now. With no Electric Train, I think. Yeah, I mean, we just have to go for it, right? I guess instead of clicking... I mean, I think Snarl was the right play with Yveltal. Oh, Rising Voltage does get the KO there. That was way too close, though. Like, Snarl miss into the Thunder crit was really bad. I do want to do the damage calc into Yveltal and see if I actually survived the Thunder, but when I saw Eerie Impulse, I figured they wouldn't have enough offense to actually KO the Yveltal, but it was one of those, like, weird mix sets where... maybe it was just modest max, or sorry, timid max, but also running Eerie Impulse instead of one of the coverage moves. So, yeah, that felt like a game I should have just won immediately, right? As soon as we got Alecky out in the position. But the fact that we had to sweat there in the end was actually really scary. And to be honest, I actually didn't think Rising Voltage would KO the Zapdos there in the end, but the 10% from Life Orb was a really big deal. So, yeah, I'm gonna pull up the damage calc real quick. So you can see the damage calc here. Even if you're modest Life Orb max, which is basically the strongest option against AV Yveltal, you do 79 to 94%. So you never have a chance to one-shot other than a crit. If you are timid max, which is what I would expect in that position, given that they did get the critical hit here, as you can see, it is just a guaranteed one-hit KO. But without the critical hit, it never gets the knockout, right? And so... yeah, that endgame was actually scary. I mean, I basically thought I had it locked up, but yeah, crit or para there would put me in a slightly trickier position. And yeah, it was really close estimate whether or not Regieleki would actually get the KO there, so I'm very glad we did. But yeah, if we had hit that Snarl as well initially, you can see Thunder is just pretty weak, 48.7 to 58%, right? And then I would get a subsequent Snarl off, and then you know, like Sucker Punch into Max Lightning and Rising Voltage should make it a pretty clean endgame there. So that was way too scary, but that's the thing, right? Like a single crit, single miss in Pokemon can really be a big deal, but fortunately, even with the crit and the Snarl miss, it was still fine, but that was way too close for comfort. So yeah, fun way to get things started, and let's look for another. Okay, we have like a run back of the previous game, but this time with Thundurus over Zapdos. Honestly, with Thundurus in like the mix now, I'm actually kind of interested in Snorlax because I think Thundurus is a max option that they consider to be Yveltal. So like we can bring Snorlax to Yawn into Thundurus, which I think is really cool. So I'm intrigued by the idea of Alecky Snorlax here with Yveltal and Zacian in the back. Basically, the logic here is that like Alecky can one-shot Kyogre if it doesn't Dynamax. If they go with something like, I don't know, Thundurus Zacian, Thundurus Kyogre, like I can max Lightning against the Thundurus. Or sorry, like against Thundurus's partner is what I meant to say. And then Snorlax can simply Yawn Thundurus. Lando T into this matchup is scary because they have Thundurus, and that's going to be Defiant most of the time. Latios is okay here, but I think it's a little bit less valuable in this matchup relative to the previous one because Thundurus is faster than the Zapdos, plus, like, I have less value in clicking Icy Wind here because it can give Thundurus a Defiant boost. So, even though it's 5 to 6 Amons from the previous game, like, now we actually have the room to try out Snorlax, which I think is cool. A single Yawn can be a huge deal in this game. So, like, basically, I think, like, Yveltal here should ideally bait my opponent into bringing the Thundurus, and then, like, Alecki plus Snorlax applies a lot of pressure from Alecki's end in terms of damage, as well as a lot of defensive pressure via Yawn immediately from Snorlax. I think what'll be interesting is if, like, the Thundurus on my opponent's team is a bait and it's not actually a Defiant, like, Dynamax variant, it's actually Eerie Impulse. But it is going to be Thundurus and Zacian. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the play I want to go for here is just Dynamax Alecki, Max Lightning into Zacian. They don't have any bulk, we can just one-shot them. But I guess that's a big if. I'm down to go for it, though. Max Lightning into you, and then Yawn into Thundurus. So Life Orb base 140 Max Lightning, which is pretty powerful, but we're timid and not modest. If we're modest, I'd feel a little bit more confident right now. But this isn't a bad lead, right? Because it's like, if you look at my opponent's team, there's 2 clear max options in Thundurus and Kyogre. And so with Thundurus, it's like really awkward, right? If you lead it, but you don't max it, what are you going to do with it? Pretty much just click Protect. Fly would actually be the other pretty interesting option. But I'm not going to target the Thundurus right now because I don't feel like I need to. This is a big turn 1 immediately, though. It's like, first of all, does Zacian go for Protect? Does Thundurus Dynamax? Best case scenario is Zacian does not Protect, Max Lightning one-shots it, Thundurus Dynamaxes, tries to Airstream Snorlax, and then we get the Yawn off, and they don't have Lumberry. That's, like, the absolute best case scenario. And in which, like, if that were to happen, I actually think we'd just win the game immediately. But one possible play for my opponent right now is Protect the Zacian, Max Airstream into the Alecki slot, so then you get a speed boost onto the Zacian, and then you can Behemoth Blade Alecki next turn. To which then my response would be Max guarding Alecki and clicking Yawn on Thundurus turn 1. Okay, they're going to go for the Protect. Now, what this means is a successful Yawn into Thundurus, which is decent. But if it's an Airstream coming out into the Alecki right now, I have to deal with Zacian just threatening me with a knockout next turn, and that's obviously quite scary. Because we've gotten the electric terrain up, like, it honestly could be worthwhile to just switch Alecki out for Rising Voltage, as crazy as that seems. Yep, so there's Max Airstream. Interesting, they actually target the Snorlax slot, so Alecki maybe can survive next turn. If we survive, it's such a big deal here, especially because they're Life Orbed, so Thundurus is falling asleep after this turn. Also, like, crazy play, but I could Max Guard Alecki and then Steel Roller into Zacian. No lie, that's actually pretty interesting. I wonder if that wouldn't KO, right? No, I don't expect it to. I'm like actually willing to go for this though, because like if like Alecki could just feint to Behemoth Blade right now. And like I think if you're my opponent, all the pressure's on Alecki at the moment. Yep, so they blade into it. They do have Knuckle. Let's see if this KOs me. I wouldn't expect it to. Okay, cool. And more importantly, Thundurus falls asleep now, right? Okay. Also, I just wanted to use Steel Roller. Like, that's such a cool option, right? It's not really that. That was a crit, too. Okay, yeah, that just does no damage, honestly. Pretty underwhelming. But that's okay. Now they're going to just angle to Behemoth Blade the Alecki slot again. I think what we do here is... Maybe I should have just, like, taken the damage roll last turn. That probably would have been better. Them having the boost is what's really scary here. Like, I want to conserve Alecki for the endgame ideally, but I'm essentially losing something to Behemoth Blade this turn. I guess unless Zacian's, like, Omega slow. This is where I wish we had high horsepower instead. Like, I think I'm going to double edge here to just put Zacian in Sucker Punch KO range ideally, but yeah, Steel Roller was unfortunately kind of under... Oh, you are slower with Zacian. All that work for nothing then. That's such a big deal that they're slower though, honestly. Interesting. Okay. We'll take it. Okay. And Thundurus falls asleep. Nice double edge as well. Cool. Because what? Turn 1, they, what? Protect, Airstream. Turn 2, Thundurus Airstreamed. And just Behemoth Bladed. This is the advantage of running max speed Alecki, though, by the way, right? Like, you can just outspeed things even when they have +1 speed. Although, for that reason, it's like a decent benchmark for Zacian to be faster. But now we're in really, really good shape. So, let's see what they bring in. It's going to be Incineroar. Okay. Incin's fine, right? Like, Kyogre presumably is my opponent's last one. So, shoutouts to Snorlax in this one, because it was able to, like, weather the early storm of both Thundurus and Zacian, survive 3 turns of Dynamax, and deal so much, like, not so much damage, but Steel Roller into the Zacian as well as the double edge into Thundurus was quite nice. Okay, so what do we want to do with this turn? They can obviously click Fake Out, but that's okay. You're surely going to click Fake Out here. Okay, I'm going to Rising Voltage and just switch out into Zacian here. I actually think it's okay to maybe stay in with Snorlax. I don't know, Snorlax is in a weird spot right now where, like, it's not going to contribute much more at this point in the game. If Thundurus stays asleep here, it really should just be game over. Okay. Yep, if he got into a lucky, it's pretty good damage actually, and they stay asleep. Okay. Yeah, I don't think they can really come back from this. I mean, you're at +1 speed, but the Alecki is still faster. I guess it's not over yet. Like, you could protect Thundurus here. Protect Thundurus. Kyogre's in the back, right? Yeah, I would have preferred to stay in with Snorlax and just click double edge into Thundurus there, I think, in retrospect. I think I'm fine Rising Voltage into Thundurus and just Sacred Sword into Incin. Okay, they don't go for Protect with Thundurus. That should be game over then. Nice. Snorlax was so nice in this early game, so I'm really happy to feature both the Latios and Snorlax in games 1 and 2 today, because both of those were pretty essential to our victory. But, yeah. Oh, Sash Incin. Yeah. Okay. The big thing in this game was Alecki just being faster than Zacian, even with them being at +1 speed. So, they were actually, in the end, pretty slow with it. Okay. I'm curious what speed stat they have. Like, maybe it's just enough speed to outspeed, like, Thundurus, but not enough to outspeed Alecki, right? I mean, that has to be the range that it's at, because it was outspeeding the Thundurus earlier. Which makes sense, because there aren't that many Pokemon that you're really looking to outspeed with Zacian after that, right? Like, you have... It's mainly about, yeah, the Tailwind interactions, essentially. So, Kyogre comes out now. What we can do is protect Zacian, switch Alecki out into Snorlax to sacrifice it, get the free switch him back into Alecki, and then just click Rising Voltage. Yeah. So, Snorlax has done his job in this one. I'm glad to see how much, or maybe I should say how little Steel Roller does, though, because the damage output, unfortunately, to Zacian was quite underwhelming. But, like I said, I wanted to assume we were slower, and Steel Roller into Double Edge into Sucker Punch I think would have been enough to KO the Zacian. Might have been close, though, I guess, especially with them having Incin in the back. Okay, Fake Out. I guess the only scary thing here is, like, a Calm Mind, but they just Water Spout. Cool. And with that, it's pretty safe to just Rising Voltage Kyogre, Sacred Sword. Even if you're Scarf Kyogre here, Max Speed Alecki should outspeed you. And the one thing we don't want to do is get tempted in clicking Electro Web, because it can actually miss right now. And if I were to miss Electro Web and deal no damage to Kyogre, and then Sacred Sword Incin and Water Spout like crits, actually Yveltal probably still wins in the long run, to be honest. But there's no reason to not click Rising Voltage here, and then just Sacred Sword into Incin. Yeah, I think the main thing that gave us a huge advantage in this game was the Snorlax being able to like shut down Thundurus a little bit earlier, as well as their Zacian actually being slower than max speed of Lecky. If that you know, the Zacian had a little bit more speed there, then I was in a really tough spot. Turn 2, I also could have just said, you know what, I'm going to let you, maybe take the damage roll on a Lecky. It's not a guaranteed KO onto a Lecky, but because I had the Life Orb chip, I was a little bit nervous, but maybe I should have just been willing to attack with the Lecky there and just click Lightning anyway. So, yeah. Fun ways to show off Latios and Snorlax, though, so let's look for one more. Third game here, and it's actually Coalossal with Yveltal. Okay. Yeah, this team has actually done pretty well recently, and in my opinion, it's kind of underrated. So, what do I want to do against it? Like, Coalossal is obviously very scary, right? Got Thick Fat, but Vocalith here is just very strong. The main thing to obviously worry about is just an Urshifu Coalossal lead. If you go Urshifu Ko, I don't really have any counterplay to that, to be honest. It could be like setting up Tailwind with Latios and then KOing with Max Quake from Landorus. That's probably my preferred method here, I think. Yeah. So Latios, like, they're going to go Urshifu plus Cole, probably. Set up Tailwind. Like, it's probably Landorus, Yveltal, Zacian, right? Okay, I'm down for a Latios Zacian lead, actually, with Landorus and Yveltal in the back. This isn't really the right matchup for Snorlax, in my opinion. Like, you want Snorlax in games in which either you get good value out of Thick Fat, or you're going up against really slow-paced teams, especially Trick Room-oriented teams. Because what Snorlax can do is you just bring it out into Trick Room, and you just yawn things, right? Now, it worked in the second game because I figured like it would match up well into my opponent's Maxmon, especially through yawn. Yeah, so it is just going to be Urshifu Cole here. So basically, like, turn 1, I'm just going to click Tailwind with Latios, and I guess the interesting thing is, do I actually even want to protect with Zacian? Because the Zacian protect here is so obvious that I could see my opponent, like, reading into it and then doubling up into Latios, but I think it's still better to play safe here. Yeah. Because it's, like, pretty much a guaranteed Tailwind off, meaning, like, if you KO Latios, okay, great, you just give me a free switch it into Landorus, right? And if you flare into the Zacian slot next turn, I can just go for, like, Icy Wind and Behemoth Blade. So with Urshifu Cole, what do we expect in the back? Yveltal and Zacian, right? Yveltal, Zacian. How do we beat those? Max Landorus is solid into both. Honestly, my Yveltal's kind of weak into both. It's not that strong, but can foul play at least. Ooh, interesting. Okay, they don't go for the self-Aqua Jet. He just strikes. I think that's a cool play. I like that a lot. Into Zacian. Smart. I think that's one thing that, like, you can do with this duo now is, like, you don't have to just click Surging Strikes, or sorry, Aqua Jet turn 1, right? And they go for Vocalith. That's a very nice play. Okay. Makes turn 2 really interesting, though, in my opinion, because now I can just, it's like, do you go for the Aqua Jet? Because if so, you obviously have to worry about Behemoth Blade, right? It would make sense to actually just max guard the Cole here. And, like, Aqua Jet something. Even a double protect here makes sense. I'm going to double up into Urshifu here. We'll see if they double. Huh. Oh, okay. I was going to say Urshifu protecting. Surely Cole protects too, right? Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Cool. That was a really nice turn 1 play. It's one that could have punished pretty heavily by just clicking Behemoth Blade into Coalossal immediately. But they read into that really, really nicely. 59 down to 27. I'm taking so much damage right now with both Mons. Aqua Jet might just KO the Urshifu now, which is scary. Sorry, KO the Zacian now. I am just gonna Psyshock and Blade here. I think they just Aqua Jet. Like, I lose both Mons, but I have the Dynamax advantage, and I have Tailwind up, so it's not that bad going into the end game, but they played with Urshifu very, very nicely here. Yeah. The thing is, it's like, they've already lost 3 turns of their Vocalith as well, so I actually don't think it's that bad of a trade for me, truthfully. Okay. Yeah, and it's just another Vocalith. But, like, this game would have been a lot stronger if I just bladed turn 1. I don't regret not going for it, but, like, since I had Tailwind and Landorus in the back, like, maybe it's worthwhile to just let them flare me, because then it's just such a free switching into Landorus, and it's Landorus plus Latios out next to each other, right? Dynamax now ends on my opponent's end. They still have 1 turn of Vocalith, and I still have Tailwind up. Main thing to worry about is like just getting Aqua Jetted right now, or Surging Strikes. Like I really don't want to take a Surging Strikes, right? Coalossal could pretty easily switch out right now into Yveltal as well, so I want to be mindful of that. Especially because we really don't want to waste any max turns at the moment. Plus, there's still a Zacian potentially in the back, right? So it's like I kind of need an angle to get a speed boost via max airstream. They know that, so they can play around that. I do need to airstream this turn, unfortunately, I think. So I'm going to airstream here and Snarl. Yeah. It's a guaranteed KO onto the Urshifu. If they switch out, that's fine. Cole wasn't that scary post Dynamax. And then basically it's like, can we use Landers to essentially one-shot everything in this endgame? Like, what's scary is they have a lot of good defensive synergies, right? So it's like Coalossal can switch into Yveltal, so if I Quake into Cole, Yveltal takes nothing from it. If I Rockfall into an Yveltal, that can pivot out into Zacian. So it's still a very tricky endgame here. Yeah, they do go for the Aqua Jet, which is a good play. Now, what's interesting here, though, is that, like, yes, it activates Steam Engine and Policy, but I have Tailwind up, so I'll get the knockout onto your Coalossal, or sorry, onto your Urshifu, and I'll Snarl, and, like, so that shouldn't really do that much to us. Oh, Cole is just, okay, it's fast. It's very fast. What did I miss into? Okay. At least not the wrong mon. Yeah, I guess, yeah, is it Timid Max Cole then, rather than Modest? That could be the case. Because I was expecting it to be Modest here, but Timid makes sense. Okay, well that makes this pretty interesting. Because I actually took a lot of damage from Heat Wave there. Tailwind Peter's out. Now, I've got Sucker Punch, right? So then my other question is, does Sucker Punch just KO Coalossal right now? Because if not, that also might be some... lead to some trouble here for me. I can definitely take another Heat Wave is the thing, right? I'm not confident on Sucker Punch KOing this, to be honest. Zacian should be in their back. AB Yveltal here would make a lot of sense. They could just Heat Wave, target my Yveltal. I mean, I think I want to just Rockfall here. And Oblivion Wing. Okay, they just Heat Wave again. It's a lot of damage. Oh, and they burn us. Okay, with the burn, there's no way I win this then. I think we're in okay shape if the burn doesn't happen. It really would have come down to how much Sucker Punch would have done into Coalossal, but now I can't KO the Yveltal. Yeah. Because basically then, like, without the burn, you bring out Zacian, I have a Max Quake, right? Plus I have the speed boost, so, yeah. Cole comes out too clutch here in the end, but that was nicely played by my opponent. They played turn 1 really well. Like, I think that in itself was, like, kind of a game-winning play. But I didn't like mind how this endgame played out too much, because if we KO'd the Yveltal there, then it's like Landers is still in a really good spot. I can Quake into either slot, and you'd probably bring out Zacian. Then the question is, do you protect the Zacian, right? Yeah, it's basically a read on that turn, but I think we were in pretty good shape without the burn. But with the burn now, there's no chance to win, I think, unfortunately. Actually, it's not over yet, I guess, if, like, well, first of all, I don't think Sucker Punch KOs Cole, but I want to see what that calc is. If it did, I could have just gone for Sucker Punch Rockfall last turn. But yeah, Coalossal actually outspeeding even when Tailwind was up was kind of a problem too. Okay, they just go for Protect. Yeah, that makes sense. Do I have a way to win this? I guess it's if, like, Coalossal misses a Heat Wave. It'd have to be a double miss. And I don't even... Does Rockfall even KO here? Okay, since the Yveltal survived 2 Rockfalls, then it means that even if I weren't... If I didn't get burnt, they still probably would have won. Because, yeah, 2 Rockfalls. Burnt equals essentially 1 Rockfall non-burnt. Not exactly, obviously, because you have different damage rolls when you hit twice, right? But... What did I need to do better in this game? Yeah, like, turn 1, just make a more aggressive play into Cole. Like, be willing to sacrifice Zacian, because it would have granted me a free switch into Landorus. I think that's the main thing I would have done differently. Because Landorus is really good into my opponent's team. Although, actually, no, not necessarily, because the Cole was so fast that even with Tailwind, I was still slower than it. Yeah. So, yeah, kudos to my opponent. I think they just played this game fantastically. Like, having the conviction to make that turn 1 play put them in a pretty big advantage. And then, like, I feel like today's episode has really been about the speed interactions, where, like, Landorus was still slower than Coalossal here, even after Tailwind. And then in the second game, we were faster than Zacian, since we were max speed Aleki, despite Zacian being +1 speed. So, happy to feature both the Latios and Snorlax a little bit today. I think, you know, Latios and Snorlax were both really critical in the victories in game 1 and 2. And in this one, my opponent made some very, very nice plays. And seeing the Yveltal survive the 2 Rockfalls makes me feel better, because it means even without the burn, I think my opponent had that one. So, yeah. Thanks so much as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all soon. All right. Peace.